President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, remains on the ground in Minneapolis, and today he announced plans to pull 700 federal agents out of Minnesota, a move that the president explained tonight during an interview with NBC News.
700 officers leaving Minneapolis. Did that come from you?
Yes, it did. But it didn't come from me because I just wanted to do it. We are waiting for them to release prisoners, give us the murderers that they're holding, and all of the bad people, drug dealers, all of the bad people.
Mr. President, speaking of Minneapolis, what did you learn?
I learned that maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals.
Now, Tom Homan said today that the removal of those 700 agents still leaves around 2,000 federal officers on the ground in Minneapolis. And just to put that in perspective for you, it's more than twice the number of local police officers that are there. The president was also asked today about the 2 Americans who were killed by federal agents in Minneapolis. And here's what he said.
You mentioned Renee Good and Alex Peretti not being angels. Do you think any of that justified what happened to them, though?
No, I don't. It should have not happened. It was a very sad, to me, it was a very sad incident, 2 incidents. And, you know, they mentioned the one now, they don't mention the other. Well, I think they were both sad. And, you know who feels worse about it than anybody? The people of ICE.
My source tonight sits on the Senate Homeland Security Committee, Democratic Senator of Connecticut, Richard Blumenthal. And thank you, Senator, for being here. When the president says he plans to use a softer touch in Minneapolis, does that reassure you at all?
No, not in the least, because what we're hearing from Homan, from Kristi Noem, from the entire leadership of that agency is continued character assassination, not only against the people of Minneapolis, but against those 2 victims, Alex Peretti, Renee Good. And in fact, Renee Good's brothers were in front of a forum that I held just yesterday. Powerful, moving testimony about their loss. And then 3 others who were talking about the brutality, the violence, attempts to kill them, bullets fired into their car. One of them so seriously injured, she nearly bled to death. These kinds of killings and brutality are ongoing in Minneapolis and all across the country. We are all Minneapolis now. And this reassurance about a softer touch, when they're continuing to call these people domestic terrorists, that they're criminals, they are not criminals. None of these individuals had any criminal history. And they were doing what you and I do every day, going to pick up their kids, going to their church to make a clothing donation, and everyday activities that put them in jeopardy.
Yeah, and to be clear on the numbers, 700 sounds like a lot that they're pulling out, but 2,000 people are still on the ground. And Tom Homan even acknowledged today, normally that would be about 150. And so, I mean, it just still speaks to how many people are there. But in terms of, you mentioned Alex Peretti and Renee Good. Vice President J.D. Vance did an interview with the Daily Mail today, and he was asked if he believes he owes an apology to the family of Alex Peretti for what he said and his repost after his death. And this is what the vice president said.
Did you plan to apologize to the family of Alex Peretti?
For what?
For, labeling him an assassin with ill intent.
Well, again, I just described to you what I said about Alex Peretti, which is that he's a guy who showed up with ill intent to an ICE protest.
No, but if it's determined that his civil rights were violated by this FBI investigation, will you apologize to that?
So if this hypothetical leads to that hypothetical leads to another hypothetical,
it's a real case.
Will I do a thing? And again, like I said, we're going to let the investigation determine. We're going to let the actual law come to the surface and figure out what happened.
What did you make of that reaction there?
Unconscionable. Absolutely unconscionable. Alex Peretti was shot in the back after he had been disarmed. Renee Good was shot in the head as she tried to drive away from those agents. The video tells you all you need to know. And for anybody who has watched those videos or heard the testimony yesterday or seen some of these stories, if they have a conscience, they would not only apologize, they'd advocate criminal prosecution for those agents and they would support legislation that I've tried to advance that gives people redress and recourse in the courts against federal agents.
And when you say disarmed, I mean, it's not like he was holding the gun up. It was still holstered in that moment. I want to ask you about something else, though, that we heard from the president's cabinet today. The director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has said that when she was present in Atlanta, when they were executing that search warrant, taking the ballots from the 2020 election, as Trump has claimed there was fraud, yet no proof, she said she was on the site, which typically someone in that position would not be, because in a letter to lawmakers, she said her presence was requested by the president and the White House press secretary. But that is not what the president just said in this interview tonight. This is instead what the president told NBC.
Why is Tulsi Gabbard there?
I don't know, but you know, a lot of the cheating comes from it's international cheating.
Questions, since the president doesn't say there that he did direct her, like she told lawmakers?
A lot of us are aghast at the absolute incompetence of his explanation, her being there, and there being no responsibility that justifies her going to Georgia and interfering with elections there. Not the slightest, not a scintilla of evidence that there is any foreign interference. That's her lane. And either she was there on a publicity stunt, try to get back in the good graces of the president, or she was doing some kind of free agency where she was just interfering on her own. And I think that it bears investigation. I hope the bipartisan investigation that we have begun with respect to Minneapolis through the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation should also include her involvement in Fulton County, Georgia. She had no business being there unless the president directed her, and apparently he didn't.
Yeah. Senator Richard Blumenthal, thank you for joining us tonight. Really appreciate your time. We also have more news ahead on the breaking news this hour and the search for Nancy Guthrie that is underway, and those big changes that we're seeing happening tonight, not only hearing from Savannah Guthrie directly, but also what is happening behind the scenes with law enforcement amid the new activity outside of her home. Our top FBI source will join us.